I'm really excited to be here with the world's greatest drummer of all times, Mr. Louie Bellson, extraordinary musician, wonderful composer and arranger, clinician, businessman, and a drummer's drummer. I mean, I just can't tell you how excited I was to find out that we were going to be able to do this today and to talk about somebody that I know you had a lot of respect for through the years, and we appreciate you taking the time. I know your schedule is busy, especially here at the IAJE International Conference, and there's a lot of folks out there that want a few minutes of your time, so I appreciate you coming in and giving us this opportunity. Louie, if I may ask, when was the first time, or how did you get to know Rich Madison through the years? Where was your first meeting of?
Well, I think Rich met and played with my brother Tony first.
Okay.
Back in the Midwest, and then Tony told me about this guy playing euphonium, you know. And I thought, well, okay. I said, Tony's a good guy. He talks good about everybody, you know.
Yeah.
But then when I finally met Rich and heard him play, I said, wow, I never heard anybody do that on a horn. And I've heard a lot of guys play.
That's right.
And I went up and introduced myself, and he said, yeah, I know your brother Tony. And we hit it off very well after that. The ensuing years to follow, I had a chance to play wherever he went, Florida or wherever, to play with his band, and also the tuba concert.
Right.
And we played in Chicago with the Medium Club, or Medium, something like that.
Jazz Showcase?
Not the jazz.
Joe Siegel's place?
It wasn't the Showcase.
What was the name of the place?
Medium, something like that, the Medium. And maybe I got it wrong, but it was a great thrill to play with Rich, you know. Then when he combined forces with John Allred, the two of them. But I always admired Rich because not only was he a great player, but he was an excellent, wonderful, warm human being. You know, I don't know one soul that would have a bad word to say about Rich Madison. He was a kind man, loads of talent.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. And I think Rich had the most jokes of anybody that I ever knew.
We had fun. Yeah.
Yeah. He always had a good story. Yeah. I know every time he would call, I would say, hello. And before he'd say, hey, Paul, it's Rich, or he'd start with a story. He'd always start with a story. Always had a great line for everyone.
Yeah, sure did.
I know you played with the tuba consort several times. Did you travel with the band when they went to Europe? Were you on the set with them?
No.
I didn't know whether you had done any of the international traveling with them or not.
I probably would have, but I was so tied up with my first wife, with Pearl, that we kept doing dates. We never got home. Went out, and never came back.
Yeah. What do you think was one of the most outstanding things about Rich, and how he interacted with the audience, and the way he presented himself? What do you think was probably the most memorable?
All the time that I've known him, I've never seen him upset over something. I mean, mad. Just get angry, you know. And I've seen a couple occasions where one or two of the guys in the band were having problems, and the minute Rich would put down his horn and go back, and 10 minutes later they were shaking hands. He was a come together guy, you know. He didn't like any upsetment. Let's have fun, buckle down, take care of business, and have fun doing it. But yeah, I've never seen him mad, and that's something, because in this crazy industry of ours, you can meet up with some strange people once in a while.
You're right. I know that Rich, in the earlier years, played with the Dukes of Dixieland. By any chance, did you have any opportunities to work with him during those years, I guess back in the 60s, that would have been. I don't know when you said you first met Rich.
I think I met him after he was with that group, yeah.
Because I know he recorded with Louis Armstrong at the time, and I was going to ask you the question that I've asked a couple other folks. I was told that when Rich was with the Dukes of Dixieland playing tuba at the time on bass, that he was sort of the person responsible for the walking bass line and doing it on the tuba, and pretty incredible stuff that he had recorded and during those times. I know that Rich was talked a lot and was very excited about that opportunity to work with Louie during
I
those
bet you
years.
Louie really liked it too.
Oh, he did. He said that they gelled from the first time he met him in the studio, and
because when you talk about walking bass line, drummers always lean on a bass player, whether he's playing acoustic bass or electric bass, and to hear that nice quarter note, and if somebody does it on a tuba, I've never heard anybody do it like Rich does, because it doesn't sound like a tuba. It sounds like a beautiful acoustic bass. Because of the air that he's putting into the horn, number one. And number two, his conception is right with the rhythm section.
Yeah, I was going to mention to you, I think that was the one thing that I always enjoyed when I was conducting the Army Jazz Ambassadors, the big band. When he would play with us, his time was impeccable.
Oh, yeah.
I remember we were doing Stella by Starlight one day, and Rich had kicked the tune off, and it was the tempo was just so burning.
Yeah.
And he had a whole chorus that he took by himself. The band, the rhythm section dropped out,
Yes.
and he did a whole chorus, and we didn't lose a beat. I mean, it was just so incredible.
That's an art right there.
It really is.
Very few guys can do that. Play a whole chorus and not guess when to come in. Whether come in on 1, 2, 3, or 4, or what.
And he would actually set it up at the end of the chorus. You could feel it. You could by the lines he was doing, whatever, the drummer, and we were in.
Yeah, you were right in.
It was wonderful. Yeah. So, yeah, I would imagine that as a drummer working with Rich and some of the other folks like that it had to be a tremendous tremendous thrill to be able to get on stage and not have to worry about things, but just to express yourself, and everybody else is listening and interacting with you, with the solos and what have you.
That's
so,
right.
yeah, Jesus.
And many times Rich would stroll. That means drums lay out, piano lay out, and guitar lay out. Just the bass and the horn. And they play 1 or 2 or 3 courses. Clark Terry does that very, very well. Charlie Shavers used to do it, called strolling. And he'd do that. And it was the only other guy that did it so well like Rich was Carl Fontana.
Oh, yes.
That nice fluid sound, always symmetric right there. You're with him all the time.
I think the thing that used to excite me working with him was the way he would come on stage very relaxed and nonchalant, and then interact with the audience. He would immediately create that bridge, with the musicians on stage and the audience, and
he could do that.
Yeah, he had a real innate ability to entertain between the selections, and he always put focus on somebody else. That's the one thing that I remember about Rich. It was never about him. It was always
the audience. Yeah, right.
And
Louis Armstrong did that. Louis Armstrong, and Clark Terry does that too.
See, now you've been in the business, how many years now?
Well, I joined the union when I was 14 years old. So subtract 14 from 80, and that's when I started.
My goodness.
My first job was playing a little beer joint. I had to be accompanied by a grown-up, help me set up my drums, make sure I didn't go to the bar. And I got $3 that night, and it was just trumpet and piano, no bass.
Really? That's wild.
I remember the trumpet player's name, Roy Gustafson.
And you were 14.
Yeah, and we played. And I didn't think anything of it, missing bass, you know. And of course, when I got to play with the bass players, then I really started to really like that, because that drummers and bass players have to be together.
In sync,
Yeah,
right, yeah. Tell us a little bit about the early years of music and your career.
Well, I was very fortunate that I came from a musical family. My dad had a music store, and the Bellson Music Store, we sold everything, music. We taught in the music store, and I had access to all the new records that came in. And Dad taught us symphony music, opera. By the time I was 13 years old, I knew every aria from every opera. So I had good basic training that I think is very important.
When was it that you knew that you wanted to be a drummer?
Oh, I was 3.5 years old. My dad took me to a parade, and I pointed at the drum section and said, I want to play that. He started me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then to high school, and then on to a professional career.
Right. My dad directed me to the piano when I was about 12 or 13 years old. I said, Dad, I don't want to play piano, I want to play drums. He said, you keep on playing drums, but go to the piano and study harmony, theory and harmony. And I'm glad he did that, you know. Because by the time one thing that really happened with me with playing swing was that I had the opportunity every Tuesday night to play in a nightclub called The Rendezvous in Moline, Illinois. There they had Spec Red from Des Moines, Iowa on piano, Argo, Percy Walker, the drummer from Kansas City, Bates, John Bates, bass player, and Steiner, the saxophone player. All these guys were bassy oriented. And they let me sit in and play the whole gig every Tuesday night. So by the time I was 17 years old and joined Benny Goodman, I was ready to swing.
So you went on the Goodman Band.
Yeah.
And how long were you touring with Benny?
I left at Moline to join Ted Fiorito. And when I got out to California, in Florentine Gardens, the Mills Brothers were there, and I played for them. I was there for 3 months, and after 3 months, Benny Goodman's brother happened to be in the audience, and he beckoned me to come over to the table. He said, I'm Freddie Goodman, Benny Goodman's brother. He's looking for a drummer. I want you to come down and audition. I said, wow. I started getting nervous. So my audition was going out at Paramount Stage. They put a tuxedo on me. I heard Benny Goodman's voice say, where's that kid drummer? Bring him out here. So they started filming the sextet. I played one number of the sextet, and Benny said, you got the job. We leave Thursday. That's how quick it was.
That's wonderful. And how old were you then?
17.
My goodness. So you go on the road, and how long were you on the road?
For about a year. Then the Army got me. Then I played in the service, so for 3 years. Came back out and went back with Ted Fiorito for 6 months, and back with Benny Goodman. Then from Benny Goodman to Tommy Dorsey, Tommy Dorsey to Harry James to Duke Ellington, then Jazz's Philharmonic, and I just kept going.
You've had a wonderful career.
Yeah, playing with all those wonderful people was just a blessing. It's a blessing.
I know Rich, when Rich first played with the Jazz Ambassadors, I remember him telling a story to the band. He said, during rehearsal one day, he said, you know, I haven't really told a lot of people about this, but I went into the military, and at the time I was not in a band or anything. He said I was a musician, but he said I wasn't even sure that I knew that they had bands and how to do it and whatever. He said, but I was in basic training, and they called me in because somewhere I had written that I played an instrument, and I ended up in the post band. They had me come in when he was in basic training, and then after they heard him play, they kept him on. He was playing piano and what have you. And he said, but the group that he was with went into combat, and his whole company, with the exception of about 3 people, had gotten killed over there. And he said, I think about that often, that if it hadn't been for my music, that, you know, what could have happened to me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What were your years like in the military, Louie?
I was very fortunate. As a young kid, I wanted to be a paratrooper. And
a gun-ho, right?
Oh, I wanted to wear the boots and all that regalia, you know. And by the time I got to, I was supposed to go with Ziggy Ellman at March Field in California. And the Army sent me the other way. They sent me to Washington, D.C. A great band there. And then I said, well, I want to join the paratroops. And I was in Walter Reed Hospital band. And all those guys were legs off and arms off.
Yeah.
They said, come here, kid. You want to do what? Join the paratroops? You're staying here and playing drums. And I'm glad they told me that. I said, are you crazy? You know, we need music. We need some entertainment. You stay here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. I'll never forget the guy, Julian Rose, had 2 legs off and 1 arm. And he said, listen to me. That's nice that you want to be a paratrooper, but it's not nice. You're a drummer, you're an entertainer, we love you. You stay here and play. So I was there for 3 years.
Yeah. Now, you're multi-talented too. You dance, right?
Well, I used to.
Now, I understand that you're still able to do that, though.
Well, I got a brand new set of tap shoes at home that I haven't gotten into yet, but I eventually will.
I'm getting hand motions over here from your better half.
Well, you know, drummer Joe Jones could tap dance. Big Sid Catlett, Buddy Rich was a drummer, a tap dancer. One of the young guys, Steve Gadd, was with the Musketeers.
Yeah.
But my sister was a good tap dancer, and I learned from her.
Steve Gadd played drums in the Jazz Ambassadors.
Yes.
During his military
sure
times,
did.
and of course he went on to New York and doing great things there.
Yeah.
So, how do you, during all of the years, I mean, people look at you and they say, oh, Louie Bellson, and they're in awe because of your career and all of the things and the people that you've worked with and the people that you've touched. How do you feel when you're talking to the young students today about your career as a musician and trying to get them to get excited about the music industry and to accept a career, or to get them excited about a career in music? What are your thoughts when you're interacting with students like that?
Well, first of all, I had the luxury of playing with a lot of great players. Rich Madison on top, Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, Lionel Hampton, Basie, Duke. It's all that sensational inside of their bodies came at me full force, and I was able to digest all that. And when they taught me these things, all of them told me, now pass it on, because we gave it to you, now you pass it on to this person.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed doing clinics where I had 30 and 40 drummers in the room, and I showed them what Joe Jones, Big Sid Catlett taught me, what Gene taught me, what Chick Webb taught me, and they wanted to know that, because you have to know where you're going. You have to know where you came from first in order to know where you're going. And by playing with Rich and all those guys, I can't express in words how that made me feel. Yeah, by playing with Rich, made me rich. That exuberant, that talent.
Mm-hmm.
And to talk about a guy that was talent, he was also a great composer, arranger. And when you play along with people like that, if that doesn't rub off on you, you got to go back home and start all over again.
Well, I know Rich loved you and appreciated not only your talent but your interaction with the students, because when he started that program at the University of North Florida, first person that he had in mind to bring in as a guest artist once he had put the band together was Louie Bellson.
Yeah.
And I was very excited at the time because I was there supporting him and trying to help him get the program off the ground. And I remember you coming in, the excitement that was generated to the students. Again, I say, you know, it's sometimes you don't think about the clout, if you will, or the aura that is around you. I mean, people just look and, you know, they look up to you, and you know, these people that have worked for so many years, and they talk about things that you're capable of still doing even at your age. I mean, it's incredible when we stop to think about it. And we were just talking earlier, and I know you're not embarrassed to say that you practice even today.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I do.
Because I know Rich, when I'd go over to his home, he would always have his euphonium there, and he was playing piano because he was a great piano player. Yeah, sure. And I used to, you know, ask him. I said, "Oh no, I practice every day, 3 hours a day." Yeah. And he said, "You'll find that most musicians that are out there playing have to do it. I mean, they just, you know, they need to keep their chops up and all of that." I know Billy Taylor. I can remember one morning, early in the morning, I was out at a club, and it was, matter of fact, it may have been one of the IAJE conventions. I heard this piano playing. It was like 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning. And here was Billy, all by himself, nobody around. Yeah. He was just doing scales, you know, and things. And people don't realize that there's a price that you pay for all of this. I mean, it takes a lot of fortitude and stick-to-itiveness to keep it going.
Got to keep it going.
Now, I have to ask you, Buddy Rich is gone, of course.
Yeah.
What was your relationship like with Buddy?
We had a very warm relationship. Yeah, I had a lot of respect for him, and vice versa. We were. He said it in a book of mine. He said, he quoted. He said, "Louie, everybody knows that Louie is a great player, but to be friends with a guy like Louie for over 35 years, that's something." And that's the way it was.
Yeah.
We got into deep conversations, and we were like brothers.
It was funny, I was talking with Phil Wilson in an earlier interview, and Phil was saying, he says, you know, it really bothered me, some of the negativism that surrounded Buddy in some conversations and things. He said, Buddy was really a genuine human being.
Yeah, he was. He really was.
And you're reinforcing that today, talking about the things. But I believe...
Talking about practicing, he said, he used to say to me, "I don't practice." I said, "You practice all the time." He said, "What do you mean, Bellson?" I said, "When you get your band together, you have a big 3-hour rehearsal before the gig. What do you call that?" I didn't say a word after that. No, he was a great player, great natural player.
In your early years, you mentioned that your dad had the music store and what have you. Where did you learn? Did you learn to read from your father? Was he your teacher, basically?
Oh, yes, he started me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
then who did you study with after that? Everybody wants to know, who did Louie Bellson study with? You know?
Then I went to Chicago and studied with Roy Knapp.
Okay.
Roy Knapp was a marvelous teacher, not only on drums, but marimba, vibes, xylophone. Because when I went to Roy Knapp, he said, "I can't teach you anything. You play so much drums now. I said, I'm gonna give you harmony and theory lessons. Play the marimba, 4 mallets, vibraphone, bells, timpani."
Right.
And after that, I went to Murray Spivak and studied the technique of using the fingers as well as the wrist and arm. And I studied timpani with Saul Goodman in New York Philharmonic.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So I had it.
So you did it all. You did it all.
Yeah, I tried to.
And I know Rich Madison had numerous philosophies, and he would say, you know, always play for someone that you love. Play to someone that you love. And I know that he spent a lot of time with students in the clinics, and I know that you worked with him in clinics things, and he used to say to each of the individuals, he said, "You are very important. what you're doing today, what you're playing today, could not be played by anybody else. I think you sort of have that same philosophy, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
working with the students, trying to get them to understand that, you know, this is something that you need to enjoy, and it's wonderful. And
that's the key. Rich enjoyed working with young people because he felt that he's teaching them something. They're teaching him something too.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time he told me, I had a kid, he said, I had a kid that played trombone, and I wanted to get him on valve trombone, and this kid was a demon. I forget what his name was. But you see, he said, I learned a lot from that kid. So it's tit for tat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know? Because I think all of us can learn from one another, you know? I can learn something from you, you can learn something from me, and that's the way Rich was. He always made it known that he wasn't the only guy that knew everything, but he shared it with somebody else.
Right. I had done a documentary on, this was about 3 years ago, I guess, and the documentary was, I'm having a mental block right now, excuse me, Hank Levy. It was on Hank Levy and his life and what have you, and his writings. And Maynard Ferguson was being interviewed, and he talked about Rich Madison during part of that, and he said, well, you know, Rich decided he wanted to be an educator, and he played, but his focus was in education. He said, but he could have been a major icon in the jazz world if he wanted to pursue that as his career, and be as big a name as anybody in the business. He said, but Rich focused his time and felt that where he needed to be was in the teaching end and working with young people. So I thought that was a real nice testimony to him and his ability. If Rich was still alive today, what do you think he would be doing?
We'd be playing some dates together. Definitely. Yes,
that's good to see. Louie, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I know there are a lot of folks out there that want to have a chance to chat with you and visit with you during the conference, but the pleasure is really all ours. We're delighted that you took the time today, and we'll look forward to doing this segment as we start to edit the piece for airing. So thank you once again for being with us.
He called me and said, I want you to come and do an interview about Rich. I said, I told Francine, my wife, and she said, great. Because when you got a subject like Rich Madison, you can talk for hours, and it's all good, it's all great. He was a wonderful man, great player, and he's up there in the sky playing now.
Yeah.
He's doing it.
Yeah, he's missed by many.
Yes, indeed.
Louie, thank you so much.
Thank you.